Hi, this is Mitch Ratcliffe for BIA Kelsey, and we're joined today by Catharine Hayes, who is Executive Director of the Wharton Future of Advertising program at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. We'll be talking with Catharine next week as one of the keynoters at BIA Kelsey NEXT in Boston. That's on December 5th through 7th. And Catharine, thanks for taking a few minutes to talk with us. What is it that you would like folks to come primed and ready to talk about when you're speaking at Next?
Change.
Change.
Change for the better.
And how big is the change that we are on the verge of?
Yeah, I don't mean to be cryptic, but I figured I would just sort of start out with that. But really, what I want to be talking about is, and I think kind of the objectives of the presentation that I want to share with everyone, or the conversation, because I think that's really how you all put the conference together, which is wonderful, is sort of the first thing, which is why even think about changing. I know people have been doing things a certain way for a long time, but in the research that we've done, we really think that there's sort of 5 forces of change that really force us to completely reconsider and challenge the way that we're thinking about things. It doesn't mean necessarily that we throw the baby out with the bathwater and completely start over, but there's the changes are so significant that we really need to sort of challenge what we're thinking about. So I'll sort of go through what those 5 things are. And what happens is, even though we know these things are going on, we don't necessarily integrate them into how we're thinking about advertising and marketing. So I want to do that. And then I think, the second thing is, what's holding us back from moving along. So talk a little bit about what those forces are, that the challenges that we face to kind of accept a new reality and do things differently. And then the research that we've done, fantastic research with sort of a special crowd sourcing. So really 200 people from around the world sort of weighing in on what the future could and should be for marketing and advertising. So important, not what could, should it be.
So you mentioned the baby in the bathwater. What is the baby that we want to be keeping as we think about changing and growing as an industry right now?
Yeah, it depends. I think that there's a lot of key notions that we have about what essential advertising is, what essential marketing is, and how we connect with people. But I think as things like big data, as this notion of digital versus analog, all these concepts start to make us feel like some of the key things that happened before aren't. So it's really, I think, for each individual person to kind of take stock of themselves and really say, what am I holding true? What am I saying? Oh, that's absolutely the way that it works. Or I know that, or I've tried it, or it's always worked that way, or, that sort of thing. So I think some of it is, and primarily a self-reflection. There are some things that we've learned. There's some current research, but things are changing so rapidly that it's really important to be leaning in to sort of be continuously adapting to understand how the traditional things that we've thought about are going forward. But let me just talk about one baby, and that is really being relevant in people's lives. I think that's been a notion in the past, but sometimes we get so caught up in the product and promoting the product that we forget about who our audience is and what's going on. And there are so many ways that they can block, skip, flame, move on, that it's really changed the playing field.
Well, and you mentioned big data. One of the other sessions, in fact, the session immediately after yours, will be with the folks from Watson, and also Equals3, which is building a tool on Watson. And you talked about how we can get caught up in designing a product that we think is going to be well-liked, and we can become convinced of that. But we really need to be listening to data much earlier in the process, even in product development and product design, so that the marketing message can be tuned more and more as you move through the product lifecycle. As you think about the future of change and what we'll be talking about next week, should people be coming prepared to embrace data in a much bigger way? And how should they start? What's the first step in thinking about that?
Yeah, I think the first step is to not think about it as big data, but think about it as actionable insights. Okay. And and really put it in the framework of making sure that you're first and foremost asking the right questions, because that's certainly something that we learn in academia, right? Is like in research, that if you ask the wrong questions, you'll get great information back, but it might not be what you're doing. The second thing is the actionable nature of it, right? Where you have information that you can actually do something with, and it makes a difference in the decision process that you have. And there's I think the reason why I think about it as actionable insights is that there is a tremendous amount of data that exists, but the lens through which we look at it can be pretty tricky. And we can see what we want to see, we can hear what we want to hear, and at the risk of being obvious, that's certainly what a lot of people are talking about as a result of the election and Brexit. And then I think
that is an example of something that has been miscommunicated completely. The press did not a great job of understanding, and frankly, the governments sort of ignored everything, thinking they were running things the way they always had. You're talking about another instance where reflection and insight is very much needed.
And the pollsters too have definitely done some soul searching post the election. We had on our radio show that we have at the Wharton School. We had Marion Saltzman, who's the head of PR for Havas, and she had some really great insights about this notion of selective objectivity, where we think we know what we're seeing. So that becomes really critical. And I think that the other aspect of it is and why to focus on insights rather than big data is this notion of the personal connection and being there firsthand and being able to really have the small insights and the human insights and the emotional insights, and as we now know, the local insights, that are really, really critical to being able to put it together. So it's that whole area of analytics is really critical, but we're learning so much through
art and science, it sounds like, is
the subject. The art part's fun.
I'm looking forward to this. Clearly listening with a bigger heart, I think, is what you've been saying, as well as reflection and thinking about what we're hearing, not only from our own perspective, but from those of our customers. Well, that sounds like it's going to be a fabulous speech.
And there's one other quick piece. The notion is to make sure that you're listening to things that you don't agree with.
Yes.
So that you're really getting a full 360-degree perspective. And I think for marketers, it's really, really essential, but for all of us. So, yeah, it should be great. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, Catherine, thank you for taking a few moments to tell us about it. Folks, if you'd like to join us next week, it's in Boston, BIA Kelsey Next. You can visit biakelsey.com, and it's very easy to find once you get there. December 5th through 7th at the Royale in Boston. Catherine Hayes, we're looking forward to hearing your keynote next week, and thanks everyone for joining us. Take care.
Thanks. Have a great one.